The stock market reacts to the Omicron COVID variant. Chris Cuomo gets suspended from CNN, and the Supreme Court hears a Mississippi abortion ban. That and more on this week's headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. President Biden announced that lockdowns won't be needed to combat the Omicron COVID variant.
If people are vaccinated and wear their masks, there's no need for the lockdown.
But of course, given Biden's track record with keeping his word when it comes to combating COVID, I'm assuming this means we can expect lockdowns in about 2 weeks, just in time for Christmas. So now, when you're trying to convince your sweetheart to stay in, instead of saying, "Baby, it's cold outside," you can just say, "Baby, Biden won't let you go outside." By the way, I'm not actually recommending you try that. It'd be a real Biden move. So as of this recording, Omicron has been confirmed in 5 U.S. states. Those states are Colorado, California, Hawaii, Minnesota, and New York. Several of the cases, including the one in Hawaii, were people who had not traveled abroad, which means there's already community spread in the U.S. And speaking of community spread, the Omicron case in Minnesota was a guy who was vaccinated, had a booster shot, and then traveled to New York City to attend an anime convention. He got sick shortly after returning. 53,000 people were at the anime convention, and health officials are urging all of them to now get tested. This is the problem with going to anime conventions. You're settling around 53,000 other people who have very low immunity to disease because they spend all their time hugging body pillows. In New York, Mayor Bill de Blasio and Governor Kathy Hochul had a joint press conference to address the new Omicron cases. Their main message: don't panic. When asked by a reporter about whether this whole thing feels like deja vu, de Blasio had this to say.
It's a very different world, thank God, than 2020.
And no one's happier about that than Bill de Blasio. Look who's in the middle seat now, Cuomo. However, the stock market does seem to be panicking about COVID. Stock prices fell sharply when the head of Moderna announced that their vaccines may not be as effective against the Omicron variant. Oh no, the pandemic will never end. Lockdowns are going to continue. Sell, sell, sell! But some health officials are reassuring the public that while vaccinated people may get infected with the Omicron variant, it's unlikely to cause severe illness or death. And some people on Wall Street are speculating this could actually be good for the stock market, with hedge fund billionaire Bill Ackman saying if this turns out to be true, this is bullish, not bearish, for stock markets. Wait, so stocks are low right now, but they could come roaring back in the long run? Buy, buy, buy! Actually, maybe I shouldn't go chasing trends in a volatile market. I'll just stick to safe bets, like Burger King's Whopper coin cryptocurrency. Yes, this is real. Well, it was real until it crashed and burned, just like you after eating Burger King. COVID variants aren't the only thing threatening Christmas this year. Supply chain issues have reduced the quantity and quality of gifts charities have received, and they may not be able to get them to children in time for Christmas or at all. Wait a minute. Supply chain issues are threatening presents from being delivered to children in time for Christmas? I've heard this story before. There's only one person who can save the day: Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. At least, he would have been able to save the day if he wasn't fired for refusing the North Pole's vaccine mandate. So that's why they won't let him join in any reindeer games. There's more bleak pandemic news. As Omicron is spreading around the world, Germany announced a near total lockdown for the unvaccinated in their country, which makes sense since vaccinated people never get COVID. But there is a glimmer of hope. A study showed that people who have recovered from COVID-19 infection are at little risk of reinfection. The study examined 353,000 people and concluded that those who have recovered from COVID-19 infection have a high level of immunity against reinfection, with only 0.4% of the unvaccinated participants contracting the disease a second time. Naturally immune people also have a higher level of protection against severe illness and death, which means to beat COVID, we're going to need to get COVID. Quick, start licking menus and elevator buttons. If someone asks you what you're doing, tell them you're saving the stock market. Buy, 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 lick, lick, lick. YouTube, that was a joke. Please show an ad during the commercial break. Welcome back. During the commercial break, Shelley informed me that South African scientists are saying past infections may not protect against Omicron, which is already showing high rates of reinfection. So, don't lick the elevator buttons. I know, I'm disappointed too. New York City became the first U.S. city to open 2 supervised drug injection facilities. Wait, I thought New York City already had a place where people could inject illegal drugs while others watched. It's called Central Park after 9 p.m. These 2 facilities are being opened in response to the record number of overdose deaths that occurred during the pandemic. This is absolutely the best way to treat the drug abuse problem that coincided with government lockdowns. The government definitely shouldn't instead focus on opening things back up, helping people get meaningful jobs, or reinvigorating community support programs. These drug facilities will allow users to do illegal drugs and offer clean needles, addiction treatment services, and treatment for overdoses. New York City's health commissioner said, "We feel a deep conviction and also a sense of urgency in opening overdose prevention centers." You may think this sounds extreme, but you can't stop addicts from indulging in their vices. At least with these centers, they can be offered help and kept safe. I wouldn't be surprised if New York City decided to offer similar services for other afflictions, such as a supervised gambling addiction facility. Although New York City already has a place where people can gamble while others watch. It's called walking through Central Park after 9 p.m. Now that's a gamble. Speaking of sketchy New Yorkers, CNN host Chris Cuomo, the brother of disgraced former governor Andrew Cuomo. According to documents released by the New York Attorney General's office, Chris Cuomo used his sources as a host on CNN to find information about the women who accused his brother of sexual harassment. Chris Cuomo tried digging up dirt on his brother's sexual harassment accusers? That's pretty scummy. It could be worse, though. He could have tried digging up dirt on the thousands of grandparents affected by Andrew Cuomo's COVID policies. Why is that worse? Because he'd literally be digging up dirt since they're all dead and buried. Still no consequences for that, for those of you keeping count. CNN announced it would conduct a thorough review of these documents. The documents also showed that Chris Cuomo advised his brother Andrew during the growing scandal. CNN then promptly announced they had suspended Chris Cuomo indefinitely, saying, "The documents, which we were not privy to before their public release, raise serious questions. These documents point to a greater level of involvement in his brother's efforts than we previously knew." Considering Chris Cuomo is a host on CNN, I'm just surprised he didn't blame the sexual harassment claims on white supremacy. I bet Andrew Cuomo would like a redo of that whole thing. Speaking of redos, a U.S. National Labor Relations Board official ordered a redo of a union election at an Amazon facility in Alabama. Back in April, workers at the Bessemer, Alabama warehouse voted to reject unionizing by a margin of more than 2-1. But the National Labor Relations Board member ordered a redo of the vote. They're saying Amazon's conduct interfered with the election. Turns out offering a fair and honest election is the only thing Amazon won't deliver. The president of the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union responded to this decision saying, "Today's decision confirms what we were saying all along, that Amazon's intimidation and interference prevented workers from having a fair say in whether they wanted a union in their workplace." An Amazon spokesperson responded saying, "It's disappointing that the National Labor Relations Board has decided that those votes shouldn't count." Yeah, they intimidated and interfered in that election fair and square. Honestly, it's like the Labor Board is picking on Amazon just because of their notoriously horrible labor practices. That's profiling. I didn't know you could just redo such a large election, though. Considering all the controversy surrounding it, I wouldn't be surprised if this story led to people calling for a redo of another major election from last year that people are still disputing the results of. Of course, I'm talking about Just Sam winning American Idol in 2020. Yeah, she's great, but there's no way she beat Arthur Gunn. I want an audit of the votes, especially in Arizona. And after the break, Twitter is awful, but for one well-known Twitter user, not anymore. Welcome back. I always say, don't spend too much time on Twitter. It's bad for you. And it seems Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey took my advice. He announced this week he was resigning from the company he founded. In a letter, Dorsey detailed why he was leaving Twitter, which I think was unnecessary. Because whenever someone tells me they're leaving Twitter, I don't ask why. I ask, what took you so long? Just look at him. That's what too much Twitter does to you. Dorsey said he was stepping away because he wanted Twitter to grow and felt staying limited the company's potential. He concluded the letter by saying, "My one wish is for Twitter Inc. to be the most transparent company in the world. Hi, Mom." And judging by the replies to this and what they said about Dorsey's mom, I'm guessing he realized leaving Twitter was the right call after all. Speaking of mothers, let's talk about abortion. On Wednesday, the U.S. Supreme Court heard the case of Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization. After oral arguments, it appears they are likely to uphold a 15-week abortion ban in Mississippi with a vote of 6-3, with the 6 conservative justices voting in favor of the Mississippi law. The decision, which will likely be released sometime next summer, could undermine Roe v. Wade and potentially even lead to it being overturned. This could cause abortion laws to become something decided by states again, not a federal matter. Roe v. Wade established that most state laws restricting abortions prior to 24 weeks, which is when the fetus is considered viable and can survive outside the womb, are unconstitutional, as they violate women's right to privacy. In 2018, Mississippi passed the Gestational Age Act, which banned abortion after 15 weeks. The state was then sued by Jackson Women's Health Organization, the only abortion clinic in Mississippi. Which means if you live in Mississippi and you want an abortion, you'll have to do what everyone else does when they want overrated barbecue and mediocre country music. Go to Tennessee. That's right, Tennessee. I said it. 3 stars isn't just your flag. It's the rating I'd leave you on Yelp. If the Supreme Court indeed upholds the Mississippi 15-week abortion ban, viability of the fetus may no longer be the metric by which abortions are considered legal. According to the CDC, 90% of abortions are performed in the first 13 weeks of pregnancy. Conservative Chief Justice John Roberts said, "Viability, it seems to me, has nothing to do with choice. Why is 15 weeks not enough time?" And left-leaning Justice Sonia Sotomayor said, "You want us to reject that viability line and adopt something different. Actually, if adoption were an easier option in this country, there might be fewer abortions." Justice Sotomayor also reacted to lawmakers in Mississippi who admitted they passed this law because the Supreme Court gained a conservative majority under President Trump. The sponsors of this bill, the House bill in Mississippi, said, "We're doing it because we have new justices." Will this institution survive the stench that this creates in the public perception, that the Constitution and its readings are just political acts? Well, let's hope this institution survives at least 24 weeks. This vote does suggest interpretations of the Constitution are based solely on who's in power. This means that if Roe v. Wade is overturned, then it could just be unoverturned when the Supreme Court regains a liberal majority, which may not take that long since some Democrats are reacting to this Supreme Court case by threatening to pack the courts. And if they do, then when Republicans regain power, in 3 years if we're being realistic, then they'll just pack the courts even more, on and on until we're all a Supreme Court justice, which makes a mockery of the Constitution, but at least we get to wear cool robes to work. Quit forcing modern political biases and narratives into the Constitution. If I wanted to hear a biased interpretation of an old text, I'd go to a Bible reading at Westboro Baptist Church. And like with guns and drugs, banning abortions isn't going to get rid of them. It's just going to make abortions harder and less safe to get. Except for the mistresses of Republican lawmakers, of course. For everyone else, they'll have to resort to driving hundreds of miles to cross state lines, getting them performed in back alleys, or worse, Central Park after 9 p.m. So what do you think about the stories we covered this week? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, America Uncovered is supported mainly by viewers. Be sure to visit patreon.com/AmericaUncovered. Contribute $1 or more per episode. We rely on your support to help us keep making great episodes. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.